Hi, I'm Ben Pink Dandelion and I've worked at Woodbrooke now for over 20 years. I currently look after the postgraduate courses that we run with the University of Birmingham and the University of Lancaster. I became a Quaker in the early 80s. I'd been living at an anarchist peace camp and I joined Quakerism really as a way of trying to change the world. I thought here was another group of people with similar kinds of ideas about peace and social justice. About a year later, though, I had a major spiritual experience. And I suppose overall, Quakerism has offered me a place to live out my spiritual journey, to experiment with where that journey's taken me, and to find a spiritual community. There's a terrible myth about not being good enough to be a Quaker. But actually, I'm a Quaker because I'm not good enough, because we need each other. We need to help each other along on the spiritual path, and it's a great place to be.
Hi, my name's Mark Russ and I'm the Nurturing Friends and Meetings tutor here at Woodbrooke. I first became a Quaker when I was 17, and I came to Quakers because I felt that I could belong without having to believe anything, and they offered me a wonderful space to explore my own spirituality without telling me what I had to believe. Also, they were the only religious group I knew of at the time that would accept me as a gay person. But those aren't the reasons that I'm still a Quaker. I would say that all those years later, I'm still a Quaker because I am really committed to the Quaker understanding that God is intimately present with us and that we can listen to God and be guided into more truthful ways of living that can make the world a better place. I mean, that sounds very easy, but I think it's a very, very difficult thing, which is why I need a community of people to help me do that, which is why I feel really committed to Quakers, not just for myself, but as a community.
Well, my name's Avril Armstrong and I'm a trustee at Woodbrooke and treasurer. And I train the Quaker treasurers here as well, so they make use of my time travelling from Newcastle. I worship at Stocksfield, which is a tiny meeting on the Tyne near Newcastle. I've been asked to consider why I'm a Quaker, and I guess I like to be useful, and certainly I find that Quakers make use of me. I'm also treasurer for Brahmana School in Lebanon, and my own area, I'm clerk to the trustees. And as an accountant, as soon as you mention that's what you do, then they give you something to add up. But mainly about Quakers, the testimonies appeal to me. The testimonies of peace and simplicity and truth and equality are not, in my view, contentious as far as good intended humans are concerned. And my main reason for being a Quaker is I don't want to judge anyone else as being wrong. So whatever other faiths I come across, I don't want to say that I'm right or better. I want to say that we can share the testimonies without any of us being wrong.
I'm Terry Oakley, and I'm here because I'm a Woodbrooke trustee and we're meeting here this weekend, but it's a place that I like to come to anyway. I'm a Quaker and I'm a member in Luton and Layton area meeting, and I go to Layton Buzzard local meeting. I suppose I'm a Quaker because I met some friends who impressed me very much when I was in my working life. And once I retired, I thought I would really like to explore what being a Quaker means. And it's come to mean a way of living. I want to live in an ethical way so that my footprint on the earth is light and I make a contribution towards a world which is full of peace and full of justice. And that's what Quakers stand for as far as I'm concerned. I'm still a very new Quaker, still practicing, but I enjoy the silence in worship. And I enjoy being associated with a group that stands for non-violence, for simplicity, for peace and equality. And if I can make a contribution to the world in a Quaker way, that would be good.
Okay, well, my name's Jane Chatel, and I am part of the Quaker grouping in the South Lakeland area, and so I go to Kendal Quaker meeting. I was brought up as a child with all sorts of different religious influences. So my father was a sort of agnostic-y, humanisty sort of person who thought that if there was a God, Quakers had got the best ideas. My mother was a Methodist. I went to a Catholic school for a short time, but only seemed to absorb the idea of kissing statues and of hell from that. And then I went to a boarding school where Anglican church attendance was compulsory, and recited creeds until gradually over time I failed to say them. More and more of it dropped off because I couldn't honestly say those things. Meanwhile, I was having a very good time with Quakers, with other young people, and we used to have a camp each year when I began to really absorb some of the Quaker values, such as an intensely equal approach. Children and old people were listened to with equal respect, as if they had something to offer. And this comes from something which is, it isn't a unique religious thing, but it is the concept of God being present both within all of us and out and beyond all of us. And so Quakers, though, try to help you to find that out for yourself, to experience it for yourself. And this really suited me. I didn't like to be told what it was that I was to believe or say, but I needed to find it out by experience. There is help around, just because we don't say a list of things that we might want to believe or want to know. We do try to help one another with that, but it is something that is about encouraging your own unique experience of God at work in the world and through people. And so, even though over the years, I'm 70 now, and there have been times when I've thought, this is too much hard work. But here I am, still amongst Quakers, and finding it difficult to think of another religious framework that would work for me. And as a little bit at the end, I'd like to say that I'm quite an extroverty sort of person, and you might think that Quakers would all be introverts because of the amount of time that we want to spend in silent worship and waiting. However, it's really very good for extroverts to practice this discipline, and so I think Quaker's good for me.
Okay, I'm Phil McMullen. I'm one of the members of staff who work in the library. I've been here about 6 months, 5 or 6 months. I was basically asked to come and help with the library, and it has been a most enjoyable experience. I find it interesting that when people say good morning here, they actually mean it. You know, having worked in organisations where they don't, they just say good morning, and but it's just a real pleasurable experience to be here. And it's great meeting all the people who come into the library, because they have a whole range of needs. It's not just books, it's magazines, and it's been quite exciting actually getting in touch with them and seeing how they feel. And they're quite talkative, So it's been quite an experience.
My name's Alex Wildwood and I'm an associate tutor here at Woodbrooke. That means I'm not on the formal staff, but I do offer courses and events here at Woodbrooke and also working with local meetings with Woodbrooke on the road. The question I was asked is, why am I a Quaker? Well, there are many answers to that, but the one that immediately comes to mind is actually about needing to be part of a spiritual community where there is a sense of accountability, where I can find and offer to others both support but also challenge. And I know that I can't do that on my own. And I particularly feel the Quaker community is very open and inclusive and inviting, and that's attractive to me. But I also feel sometimes there's a lack of edge, that I actually want, as I say, the word is accountability. I want something that I get from people who are prepared to challenge each other and go to deep places from a loving place.
Hi, my name's Stuart Masters. I work at Woodbrooke as a senior programme leader, so I'm part of the tutor team, and I worship at Selly Oak meeting in Birmingham. It's a tricky question when you're asked to talk a little bit about what Quakerism means to you and why you're a Quaker, when you're actually employed to teach it, because separating the kind of more theoretical stuff from the personal stuff is quite tricky. But when I was thinking about it, two things came to mind. The first thing about the Quaker way is the way in which it binds together both a contemplative practice and action in the world. So sitting quietly, leaving all the busyness behind, opening yourself up to guidance often leads to you feeling prompted to do something in the world, and we see that through Quaker history. The other linked point is that what I really appreciate is the idea that the Spirit of Christ is a living presence that everyone has access to, and that when you turn to it and you follow its guidance, then the unconditional love, the non-violence, the commitment to compassion and justice that we see in the life of Jesus is something that then might be seen, at least in part, in our own lives. Now that's quite a big claim to make, so it's quite daunting, but it's also quite an exciting prospect as well.
I'm Connor O'Keefe. I'm the marketing officer here at Woodbrooke. What I enjoy most about working at Woodbrooke is it is such a peaceful place, and there is a real kind of caring nature and closeness between staff and volunteers and even the guests and participants who come here day in and day out. What I take away from it the most is that the work that Woodbrooke does here and the work that I contribute towards aims to be part of a benefit to the wider world, really.
Hello there, I'm Martin Layton. I'm one of the senior programmes leaders here at Woodbrooke Quaker Study Centre and one of the tutors on the programmes team. I found Quakerism after quite a long period of questioning and searching, and I found that the silent meeting, the stillness, was a place to encounter God. It was a place of connection, of nourishment, but also of challenge. I found that over time I'm starting to reorientate my life towards that great mystery that I call God, and I'm upheld by a community of faith that challenges me and questions me with love and truth. I'm also finding that I'm questioning the way I live my life, my active witness in the world. And I feel very strongly, as early Quakers did, that we are ambassadors for a new way of living. They would talk about building the kingdom of God on earth. And perhaps we wouldn't use those terms so much now, but that principle is still very much alive, that we are seeking to live in a different way that's spirit-led rather than that's driven by our ego or our more superficial needs.
My name's Sandra Barry. I'm Director at Woodbrooke Quaker Study Centre and I worship at Selly Oak meeting in Birmingham. I'm still actually a member of Southern East Anglia area meeting, the meeting that I became a member of when I first became a Quaker. When I was asked why am I a Quaker, I thought about the fact that I hadn't moved my membership from one area meeting to another, and that tells me a lot about some of my resistance. For me, it's about relationships. Being a Quaker is about my relationship with my God, but it's importantly about my relationship with my community, with my worshipping community, with the community that I work with the community that forms the structures that helps us provide a nurturing space to worship and to be a community together. I'm not a natural Quaker. I remember going to my first Quaker meeting, and after 10 minutes of silence I wanted to run out of the door. But something kept me there. And it's not just the worship, although worship is central. It is about the community, it is about us all working together, it is about the equality of responsibility that we all have as Quakers.
Hi, my name's Matt. I'm an assistant gardener here at Woodbrooke, and what I like about working here is the fact that we are constantly encouraging an organic and sustainable outlook, following a sort of Quaker ethos on keeping things, again, sustainable. We grow our own fruit and veg that are used in the kitchen. We don't use chemicals. Everything's done sustainably, although it's a harder method of doing things. It's more sustainable again. It's a very common word to keep bringing up, but everything that we do here, even though it's a small sort of community or a small group, it's still a big impact on the world as a whole, because if everyone was doing sustainable things together, or being organic, or not using chemicals, growing their own stuff, and just trying to reuse and recycle everything that's being chucked away, then all of our ecological problems would eventually cease to exist. So what we're doing here sort of is a little pocket of what we should be doing worldwide, if you see what I'm saying. So yeah, what I like is just the fact it's sustainable, we're organic, and we're helping the world be a better place, bit by bit, yeah.
My name, Connie Joy Griffiths, but a lot of people know me as Joy. I'm a breakfast chef for the past 20 years. I was a commis chef before I'm a breakfast chef. Different nationality will come to this place. The staff are great.
Hi, I'm Sally Sadler. I'm the resident volunteer coordinator here at Woodbrooke. I'm currently still a member of the West Wiltshire and East Somerset area meeting, but I'm shortly going to be moving over to Central England area meeting. I became a Quaker in 1984 in Brussels when I was working at the Quaker Council for European Affairs. I had been going to meetings since I was a child because my mother was a Quaker and who was a clerk of Lewis meeting in Sussex. I decided to join because somebody asked me, and I haven't ever regretted it. My membership's very important to me, and I think it is a different thing to being a tender. Being an actual member is important to me. So what keeps me in Quakers is the format of the worship, which is very central to my life. The sense of community and the sense of a spirit which you can feel in a meeting which you can't find on your own. So I've gained a great deal from offering service to meetings in different ways by being a clerk, looking after children, helping with the tea and coffee is a good way to start. And I've come and gone with Quakers and came back again to Jesus Lane meeting in Cambridge when I was working there. And the meeting became very important to me especially when I was made redundant during the public sector cuts when the Conservative government came in. And they needed somebody to help with the Wednesday soup making and the meeting that went with that, and it was just great to have the opportunity to do something useful. I felt as if I was doing something useful at a time when other things were not going so well. We often have a lot of talk about the word God, and for me that God is love and God is a question mark. Both those things make sense to me, and I think there is that of God in everybody.
My name is Michael Eccles. I'm the Young Adult Programmes Coordinator and Quaker Peace and Social Witness Tutor at Woodbrooke, and I'm a member of Cottridge Local Meeting in Birmingham. So for me, I became a Quaker mainly because my parents were Quakers and their parents before them were Quakers. But it's more than that for me. Something has kept me wanting to be a Quaker. And I would say the most important thing is the community. I feel it's very important to be part of a Quaker community, and actually I'm a part of a number of different Quaker communities. So my local meeting at Cottridge in Birmingham, Britain Yearly Meeting is also an important community for me. I have a lot of friends there. And also the World Family of Friends is an important part of my Quakerism. So being part of a global organisation, knowing Quakers in different countries and having met many of them. Perhaps the final community I want to mention is Woodbrooke. Although it's where I work, I see it as a community as well, and it's an important part of my Quakerism. It's important for me to go to meeting as often as I can get there to reconnect with my community and my local meeting. And I value the space that Meeting for Worship gives me. It's a chance to think, to reflect on life, perhaps to seek guidance, as well as to meet with people who I know and care about. As I said, Quakerism for me is a global thing. This began for me, I think, when I was about 17. I went on the Quaker Youth Pilgrimage on the west coast of the States with a group of about 25, 16 to 18-year-olds. And we spent the month together travelling and working together, learning to live with each other, worshipping together. And this really opened my eyes to Quakerism around the world. And my work keeps me connected with some of that work around the world, which I hold very, very close. As part of my job here, I help the ecumenical accompaniers prepare before they go to Israel and Palestine to be human rights observers. I also work with the one-year UK peace workers, helping them prepare and supporting them through the year, and also the Quaker UN office programme assistants from the Geneva office. Are part of that preparation. So I feel really privileged that I get to work with them, and it's an important part of my faith that I can support them and be part of that work.
I'm Simon Best. I'm Head of Learning here at Woodbrooke, and I worship at Cottridge Meeting in Birmingham. I was brought up a Quaker, and as a teenager I stayed because it was a community where I was accepted, valued and nurtured by older friends, but also by Quakers my own age. I'm a Quaker now because I think it makes me a better person. The community, the challenge of living Quaker testimony in my daily life, the worship based in silence, but with the hope and expectation of a real connection with the Spirit, the way we live, work, and make decisions together as friends, and the fact that Quakers are focused on building the kingdom and making a difference now rather than just in the future.